Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
So as we get our seats, make sure you have a siddur, a prayer book from that corner on the wall. And we'll start by welcoming in the Shabbat angels with Shalom Aleichem, page 142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hashalet, Malachei Kadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Bimelech Malachei Amlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu, Baruchuni leShalom. Kadosh Baruch Hu, Zeitchem leShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Bimelech Malachei Amlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu,
Shabbat Shalom again to everyone. So glad to be together. So glad to have you, Max, here with us, a Shabbat, as we celebrate your bar mitzvah and your leadership in our service tonight and tomorrow. We're really, really excited for you and so thrilled for your whole family that's able to be here from near and I know from far as well. So glad that everyone is here. And for, of course, our whole congregation here in the shul and online. It's so nice on especially a rainy night to be together in this warmth of Shabbat. So we are going to begin by bringing light into our sanctuary with the lighting of the Shabbat candles on page 121. And we're going to invite Max's family, the designated candle lighters, if you want to come on up. Who's doing that? Oh, I meant you.
Yeah.
I have the wrong names on my list here, so from last week's show. So Sidel and family. So Sidel, and if you guys want to come over here and do this reading.
Yeah, do the reading and then you can use the middle candle to light the other two.
Do you want to read first, Mom? And we'll read the second one.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Amen.
You can go over.
There you go. Hold it together. Baruch atah
Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. So we'll move to our first section of the Shabbat service tonight, Kabbalat Shabbat, which starts with traditionally Psalms 95 through 99. We won't do all of those, but we'll do a little selection of these Psalms from Kabbalat Shabbat, which all have these themes of praise, joyful singing, and God's malchut, sovereignty or kingship. So you'll see a lot of words like shiru ladonai, sing to God, and references to all kinds of music. We have human-made music with harps and trumpets and horns and, of course, our voices. We'll also have references to nature-made music, like the heavens rejoice, or we say the earth exults, rivers clap their hands, the mountains sing. And it's all part of this idea that on Shabbat, every part of creation comes together to make Shabbat holy. But also we, in our liturgy, have this idea that every day, not just on Shabbat, the work of creation is renewed. Uvtuvo mechadesh bechol yom ma'aseh v'reishit. That's from Yotzer Or that we do every morning. So every day is a chance to see the world with fresh eyes. Whatever you took for granted this past week, or maybe the people you didn't call, the moment you weren't really present for, Shabbat is an opportunity to find the beauty in the world around us and kind of slow down, take a breath, notice what is special and holy in your life right now. If you have a simcha that you're celebrating, or if it's just a regular Shabbat, take this opportunity as we start Kabbalat Shabbat to really savor this moment in this room right now or online. Page 130. Lechu neranena. Lechu neranena ladonai, nariya letzur yisheinu. Lechu neranena ladonai, nariya letzur yisheinu. Nekadma fana betoda. Bizmirot nariya lo, nekadma fana betoda. Bizmirot nariya lo. Yalalai, yalai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yalai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya 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 la 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 la, ya la 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 la. On the next page, Shiru Ladonai, sing to God. Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Shemo, Basru Miyom Le'yom, Yeshuato, Sapru Vagoyim Kevodo, Bechol Ha'amim, Nigleotam, Ki Gadol Adonai, Ulal Me'od, Norahu, Al Kol Elohim, Ay, 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 alay, 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 So on page 133, we turn to Psalm 98, which kind of has a lot of Hebrew words. A lot of these Psalms have a lot of Hebrew words. So I thought tonight we'll break it down a little bit with kind of a repeat after me. So we started with the nigun that we started with tonight is the same melody that we're going to use for this text. So here's the first part. Try it after me. Mizmor shiru ladonai.
Mizmor shiru ladonai.
Beautiful. Shir chadash.
Shir chadash.
You got it. Ki niflaot asa.
Ki niflaot asa.
Hoshia lo yamino uzroa kodsho. Hoshia.
Hoshia lo yamino uzroa kodsho.
Before we go on, let's go back to the top and try that whole part. You guys sound beautiful. Here we go. Mizmor shiru ladonai. Shir chadash. Shir chadash. Ki niflaot. Ki niflaot. Asa. Hoshia lo yamino uzroa kodsho. Here's the next part. Hodia Adonai Yeshuato. Hodia Adonai Yeshuato. Le'enei hagoyim gilad tzidkato. Le'enei hagoyim gilad tzidkato. I know, it's kind of high. Zachar chasdo ve'emunato. Zachar chasdo ve'emunato. Leveit Yisrael. Leveit. Leveit Yisrael. That was awesome. Yalai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, lai. You know it now. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yalai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, Awesome, everyone. So I think we're warmed up and ready to turn to page 138 now for Lecha Dodi, the central part of Kabbalat Shabbat, for Welcome, the Sabbath Bride.
Lecha Dodi likat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor v'dimkor echad yishme'anu elam yuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad l'shemo tiferet ve'litila Lecha Dodi likat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela Lecha Dodi likat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Verse 2.
Likrat Shabbat lelufen elcha Tihi mekor haberacha Merosh mikedem neslucha Sofa sedem achshav atchila.
All together,
Lecha Dodi likat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Little bit louder. Lecha Dodi likat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Mikdash melech ir melucha Kumi tzei mitoch ha'hafecha Rav lach shevet be'emek havacha Lehu yachamol alai chemla Lecha Dodi likat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela.
verse 5.
Hitoreri, hitoreri, kiva orek umiori, uri, uri, shietameri, devon Adonai alaych nigla. Hey, Lecha Dodi likat
Rise and
kala
face the
yadadai
door to
yadadai
greet the Sabbath
yadadai
bride.
pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Verse 9.
Moi v'shalom ateret bala gam besimcha u'betzola toch emunei am segula moi chala
You face forward, but we stay standing one more time, all together.
Lecha Dodi likat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likat kala yadadai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela.
So we will remain standing. We are very well warmed up and ready for the next part of our Shabbat service on page 263. And as we prepare for Chatzi Kaddish, as we move into Ma'ariv, I want to invite Max to come join us on the bima to lead us in this next part of our service.
Yitzkada ve'yitzkada shemei Rabba
Amen.
Ve'al divrei chirutei ve'amlich malchutei B'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'b'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala bagala u'bizman kariv v'imero Amen Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach Le'olam u'lam le'almaya יתברך, יתברך, וישתבח, ויתפאר, ויתרומם, ויתנשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמי דקודשא בריחו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, זמירן ועלמא ויאמרו, אמן.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam vaed.
Please be seated. So we continue on page 265.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bivro mariv arevim, behokma potei sharim, uvit vuna v'seh itim, u'mahalef et hazmanim, u'msasder et hochovim, masmatotevim borikia kurtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei hoseh, v'hoseh mipnei or, u'mevir yom uvein laila, u'mavdol ben yom uvein laila, Adonai savot shemo, el hayam tamid yemloch Adonai olam ed, Baruch atah Adonai hamariv arevim.
Amen. Page 266, Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael alma avta Torah u'mitzvot kumim u'mishpatim utanu limadeta al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shakbeinu uvkumeinu nasia behuteha ונשמח בדברי תורתך ומצוותיך לעולם לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, ואהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולמים. Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
268.
Behavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha vechol nafshecha uvechol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh Asher Elohim mitzavecha hayom olevavecha beshinantam levenecha dibarta bam v'shifteha bevetecha uvlecha baderech uvshofbecha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yedecha v'hayu letotofot bein einecha Uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvi shorecha leman tiskeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai v'yatem kedoshim le'Elokechem ani Adonai Eloheim Otzer tzitzihem me'eretz Mitzrayim Liot lahem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Eloheim.
Amen. We'll continue. continue responsively in the English on the bottom of 269.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'tzivos b'nei Yisrael, 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 asher b'tzivos b'nei
We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of the harmony for all.
Yet that oneness eludes our grasp as imperfection and evil abound.
Before our eyes there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness.
There is evil enough to break the heart, and there is good enough to exalt the soul.
When will redemption come?
When we grant everyone what we claim for ourselves.
Long ago we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High.
We learn God's presence redeems time and event, so we celebrate this power that makes for freedom.
Page 270. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, noratehi lo dosevele, noratehi lo dosevele. Malchotecha ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, zelianu ve'amru, zelianu ve'ameru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Amen. Our evening prayer of Hashkivenu, page 271.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. Amen.
On Shabbat, we have an opportunity to unplug. I don't think our ancestors really could have imagined what it would mean to literally unplug, as we know we really ought to in our modern age. It is harder and harder the more and more dependent we get on technology. And even tonight, you probably have seen, we're trying to figure out all these buttons and things up here. With Rabbi Dan not here, it's harder than it usually looks. But there is something about just being present in reality that is not about the virtual that is around us. We love that we are able to connect with people virtually through the streaming, and we know it is so beautiful and wonderful, and we want to continue to do that. But outside of, the things that we can do to augment our presence and our spiritual life, we also want to think about the ways in which technology sometimes bogs us down and keeps us separate from those around us, from the earth around us, from all that really matters. So we think about all of that and prepare to join together in Vishamru. Maybe take a moment to think about how we might unplug in whatever way that looks a little bit more this Shabbat, page 272.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. Yam barai dai dai, Shabbat, Shabbat, yam barai dai dai, Shabbat, Shabbat, yam barai dai dai, Shabbat, 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 Shalom.
So we'll prepare now for the Amidah on page 274. We'll rise together as Max will lead us in beginning with Avot ve'Imahot.
Baruch atah Adonai Elohei Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rahel Elohei Leah El Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanura El Elyon Gomel Hasadim Tovim Vekaneh HaKol Vezoher Hastiyamot V'Imachot Umigugula Livnei V'Nehem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Otzer Umashia Umagin Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Vezorat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mehaye Metim Atarav Lehoshia Marirua Umarid Hagashem Mehaye Hayim Behesed Mehaye Metim Barakamim Rabim Somek Noflim Verofe Holim Umatir Asurim Ukehaye Emunato Lishene Afar Miha Moha Be'al Gevurut Umidomelach Melech Memit Umet Haye Umet Mia Yeshua Eman Atal Lechayot Metim Baruch Atah Adonai Mechaye HaMetim.
Page 276.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעללו חסלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Amen.
Please be seated. Yasher Koach, Max, beautifully led. Our service continues now on the bottom of page 277, 3 lines down. Kadshenu b'mitzvotecha.
קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך. קדשנו במצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך. צווינו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך. צווינו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך.
On page 279, we'll join in these words of Ritzeh.
רצה אדוני אלוהינו ועמך ישראל ותפילתם באהבה תקבל ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל. ישראל עמך אל קרוב לכל קורב פני אליו עבדיך וחוננו, שפוך רוחך עלינו. On the next page. ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון. ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון. לציון. לציון.
For all of our blessings in our lives, in our immediate circles of connection, but also in the world around us, there are so many blessings. Just each moment, each millisecond we encounter, each breath is a blessing. For all of these things, we offer our words of gratitude in the middle of page 281, Ve'al Kulam.
ועל כולם, ועל כולם, יתברך ויתרומם, יתברך ויתרומם, שמע מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד, וכל החיים יודו חסלה, ויהללו את שמך באמת, האל ישועתנו ועזרתנו, עזרתנו צלה. ועל כולם, ועל כולם, יתברך ויתרומם, יתברך ויתרומם, שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך, הטוב שמך, ולך נאה, נאה להודות.
Our prayer for peace, Shalom Rav, page 282.
שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה משלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, Tasim leolam, tasim leolam, tasim leolam.
Take a moment now for our own silent prayer.
Come back together on the bottom of page 285 with Oseh Shalom. May the one who makes peace in the heavens make peace for us on earth.
Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
I invite you to turn ahead now to page 371 so that together we might offer a prayer of healing, of refuah, for all of those in our lives who are in need of healing of body or of spirit. I will share the names of those we are thinking of in our extended temple community, the Shabbat, and then invite you, if there are names you're holding in your heart, to please share them as well. We think especially of Howard Diamond, Avram Sudak, Rayanne Brackett, Daniel Gottesman, Merle Granberg, Judy Coblin, Dina Mandel, Basil Kalner, Isabel, Judy Steiner Lossberg, Alana James, Dr. Dimitri Zanazin, Shayna Stawicki, Ron Hoyer, Sarah Bat Avraham Vasara, Sanford Cohen, Igor Ilyasov, Andrea Jarzbiak, David Shlomo Gorney. I invite you, if there are names you would like to add, to rise and share them aloud at this time. Those at home invited to share aloud or in your heart the names of those you are thinking of as we join together in this Misha Berach.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu, mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing,
Well, last week was a wonderful week for the Jewish people. I mean, we had the end of Hanukkah, which was exciting and lovely. I especially love the end of Hanukkah when the Chanukiah, when the menorah is full of light and it shines so brightly, it's beautiful. But we had an extra dose of light this Hanukkah, which is that we have a new member of the Jewish people who's here with us today, Carol Siprit, who is just joined formally in going to the mikveh last week, is here this Shabbat, along with her partner Sandy and other family and friends here. We are so, so glad to see you in person, Carol. I know Carol and Sandy watch the stream every Shabbat, and they are so wonderful. But they wanted to come tonight because we wanted to offer Carol a blessing on this occasion with our whole community present. So Carol, I want to invite you to come up on the bima so that Cantor Cohen and I might offer you a blessing, and we'll invite the congregation to please rise as the ark is opened. So Carol, you stand here before the ark and our Torah scrolls, taking your place among our people. You have been part of the Jewish community for a very, very long time, but last week you formalized that, and in inviting you up here for a blessing, we also invited you to bring your talit, this new talit, which is one of the things that now that you have formally become Jewish, you take on the responsibilities of all of the mitzvot, of all of those deeds of sacred living and obligation, and taking them upon yourself, I hope, as acts of inspiration and acts of sanctity in your life and by extension in our community. And they are represented by this talit, by the tzitzit of all of those sacred obligations. And so I'm going to invite you, when we give you this blessing, that you should be wearing this talit for the very first time. And I'm going to instruct you with the blessing for putting it on and then to wrap you in it. You will hold it out like this and say these words after me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehit'atef batzitzit. Amen. Thank you. We give you this blessing. In Yiratzon, may God bless you and keep you. In Yiratzon, may God's light shine upon you and be gracious to you. In Yiratzon, may God always be with you, Carol, and grant you that most precious of gifts, the gift of shalom, of wholeness and peace. Amen. And mazel tov, mazel tov. Siman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, siman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, siman tov, mazel tov, siman tov, yelanu, yelanu, ulecha Yisrael, yelanu, ulecha Yisrael, yelanu, ulecha Yisrael, yelanu, ulecha Yisrael. Mazel tov. You may be seated. Wonderful. Mazel tov, Carol and Sandy, and to all of us, really. So I want to share just a few announcements before the drush this evening. Coming up, as always, many things going on at the shul this week. On Sunday, our BBYO Junior, our junior youth group for grades 4 to 7 students, are going to have a magic program. Not magic the cards, but like a magician, which should be really fun. So after religious school on Sunday, our sisterhood will join together for their next Book and a Bite series, their book club. There are 2 dates for that on the 14th and the 15th of December. Our men's club has an upcoming program on exploring the origins of misinformation in contemporary society that looks very interesting with Dr. Mark Wexler, a professor of business ethics at SFU. So there's more information about that in your program. Also draw your attention, we have a new adult ed series that's starting in January on the history of Zionism in Israel with Mike Hollander, who's a wonderful, wonderful tour guide based in Jerusalem, though his roots are here in Vancouver, so he'll be joining us virtually by Zoom to do some Israeli history. So that will be wonderful. It's going to be a lunchtime series at noon for, I think, 6 weeks. Finally, if you are so moved to donate some tzedakah, the Jewish Federation of Greater Vancouver has a BC flood relief fund that is really helping already. I've been reading about the distributions to different groups. I just read recently about immigrant farm workers who have had really a difficult time with the flooding and losing housing and things like that. So really wonderful, wonderful work that the Federation is doing and in cooperation with other faith communities around BC. So finally, Mazel Tov again to Max and your whole family. We invite everyone to join us tomorrow in person or virtually for our services 10 a.m. And thank you tonight to Bruce and Joan, Max's grandparents, for sponsoring our Oneg Shabbat. We hope everyone who's here will stay to enjoy and get a chance to visit with one another. So one of my favorite characters in the whole Torah is hidden in this week's parasha. One little mention, her name was Serach bat Asher. Serach bat Asher. I'm going to tell you all about her, but first I got to give a little bit of a backstory so we understand what's going on. So this week's parasha, Vayigash, is one of reconciliation. This is the famous scene you might remember where Joseph, who had been, remember, a few weeks ago, sold into slavery by his brothers, terrible relationship. He goes to Egypt. He rises to actually very strong position in the Egyptian government. He becomes kind of second in command, and there's a famine in the land of Israel, and all of his brothers and his fathers, they're hungry, they're starving, and so they go to Egypt to find food, and this is the parasha when finally that reconciliation happens. Joseph knows that it's the brothers don't know it's him. He says, "It's me, your brother." They all cry and they hug and things are great. Okay. Now, one of the things to note about this reconciliation, it's different. We have reconciliation with brothers earlier in the Torah. For example, we have, Jacob and Esau. A few weeks before, Jacob, Joseph's father, they get together. They're fine, but they go their separate ways. Here, with Joseph and his brothers, they don't go separate ways. They come together. And they end up living together in the land of Egypt for a number of generations. And that's how this week's Torah portion continues. It actually talks about all of the people. It counts all of the individuals who end up settling in Egypt. And it actually talks about 70 individuals, the 70 souls who are mentioned making that big move. It mentions them name by name by name. And it's noteworthy that we have this one woman, Serach bat Asher. So Asher was one of the 12 sons of Jacob. and this is one of his daughters. Now, it's probably inconceivable that among those 70 people that there was only one woman. I mean, likely there were more women than that, but women weren't always named. But in light of that, there must be something special about her. And I want to tell you about her because it's an incredible story. So we hear about Serach bat Asher one more time in the Torah. We hear about her in the book of Numbers, that there's a census of all of the Israelites in the desert to see who could fight to conquer Canaan, the land of Israel. The census is taken, and the names and the tribes are recorded, and we hear her name again. The name of the daughter of Asher was Serach. So her mention there suggests that not only did she go down to Egypt with Jacob, but she also left Egypt with the Israelites in the Exodus 400 years later. It's a long, long lifespan. So the rabbis have fun with this. It's the start of a wonderful narrative around Serach, that she joins a small group of individuals who are considered perhaps to never have died. Kind of like Elijah the prophet, who pops up over and over again. She becomes a tool of the rabbis used in Midrash in these stories to fill in gaps in our narratives. So I want to share 3 stories about Serach bat Asher with you. So the first one goes like this. When Jacob's sons return to Israel with the news that Joseph is alive and also rich, they experienced a strange moment of cowardice. Not one of them had the guts to tell their father that his favorite son was alive. So they went to Serach, their niece, who was an experienced music maker and a breaker of good news, and asked her to gently tell her grandfather that Joseph was alive. So she composed a song with the chorus of the words, "Joseph lives, Joseph lives." That she deliberately, in the eyes of the rabbis, delivered the news of Joseph's presence in Egypt in song, which enabled her grandfather to hear the words gently. And Jacob blessed her, saying, "If this is true, the bearer of such news shall live forever." So it was Jacob who made her into this eternal figure. So that's story 1. In the second midrash, we learn that it was Serach who was the one to show Moses where Joseph's bones were buried in order that they be taken out of Egypt with the Israelites during the Exodus those 400 years later. Since she would have been the only one who was there when Joseph died, when his bones were ready to leave Egypt with the Exodus, she was that link, that generational link between those who came down to Egypt and those who left. But it's the third midrash that I love the most. Here, we enter many, many, many generations later, the Beit Midrash, the study hall of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was sitting and expounding about the Exodus and began to describe the scene, how the waters and the splitting of the sea were made into walls for Israel. And Rabbi Yochanan explained that they were like opaque, very strong and thick walls that they walked through. And Serach in the back, she grew angry and said, "No, no, no, I was there." They were like nets. So not only is Serach a key transmitter of intergenerational information, she contradicted a great rabbi in her transmission of how it really was when they crossed the Sea of Reeds. It's remarkable here, this story that we have of this woman who was not even invited to really enter into this Beit Midrash, that she is able to teach one of the most famous of our Talmudic sages. we see that she's able to correct the teaching not by bringing some other source, but on the basis of her own experience. Here we have this really interesting rabbinic admission that those who are sometimes excluded from being the bearers of the real tradition may actually possess knowledge that is just as strong and essential. We call this, in some ways, experiential wisdom. It is wisdom that is manifested within ourselves. Like Serach, we are all important as links in the chain of tradition. We all have that power to pass something meaningful on to the next generation, as gently as she did with her grandfather Jacob, or perhaps as bravely as she did in speaking up to Rabbi Yochanan. We are not able to live as long as she, but Judaism asks us to hand something of importance and meaning and joy to the next generation, to trust our own wisdom grown from our experience that might impact our world long after our time. Shabbat Shalom. So I invite you to turn back in your Siddur as we continue with Aleinu on page 586. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו ופסולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. On page 592, a reading before the Kaddish. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. We turn to page 598. Prepare for the words of Kaddish. We share the names of those for whom we mark Shloshim, who've died in the past week and 30 days, and Yartzeit, those whose anniversary of their death falls this week. And I invite you, as I read the name of your loved one, that you stand and honor their memory with your presence. We are in Shloshim for Helen Coleman, Arnold Konevsky, Jack Kima, and Rosalind Waterman. And we mark yahrzeit this week for Fortune Ackman, Stephen Beacle, Faye Belogis, Erwin Berkowitz, Eddie Brown, Sarah Kleiman, Ryan Coblin, Dora Elson, Judy Firestone, Lily Frinton, Phyllis May Gallen, Rennie Glass, Harry Gold, Jack Gordon, Marjorie Hamilton, Samuel Heller, Nessie Herman, Paula Hister, Ralph Califf, Princess Cantor, Shirley Kleinkarsh, Leon Krieger, Sam Martz, Minnie Menkes, Craig Moss, David Moss, Evelyn Ozer, Jack Raber, Carol Robichek, Abigail Rosa Bueno, Lena Rubinson, Louis Rudin, Belle Rikus, Judith Schachter, Alex Schwartz, Mary Schaefer, Sarah Slobinski, Glenn Slykus, Molly Sudak, Joseph Stern, Bessie Stern, and Morris Zeigelman. There are others who have come to say Kaddish. I invite you to rise and share the name of your loved one at this time. Stand together beside all of those who mourn and invite those who will to join in these words of the Mourner's Kaddish, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shmei dekudsha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru.
Amen.
Amen. Yizichronam livracha, may their memories always be a blessing, as we say together. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So we'll remain standing. We're going to invite Max to help to lead us in Kiddush and Hamotzi before our closing song. We'll do this down over here, Max. You can turn to page 122 if you'd like to follow along.
Vayahi erev, vayahi voker yom hashvi'i. Vayahulu hashmanayim v'cha'aretz, v'chol sava'am, v'chol Elohim vayom hashvi'i. Melakto asher asa, vayishbot vayom hashvi'i. Melakto asher asa, vayavarach Elohim et yom hashvi'i. Vayakadesh oto kivo shavat mikol. Melakto asher brach Elohim la'asot.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereshit ki hu yom tefillah lemikra'ei kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim ki banu ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. אמן. לחיים.
Chaim.
Grape juice, right? Okay, good. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
We'll conclude with Adon Olam on page 625. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yetzir nivra, le'ed nasa v'chefzo kol azay melech shemo nikra, ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado yimlok nora, ve'hu haya ve'hu hove ve'hu yeh betifara, ve'hu echad ve'ein sheni, lehamshilo lehachbira, ve'li reshit ve'li tachlit, ve'lo ha'oz ve'amisra, ve'hu eli ve'chai goali, ve'tzur chevli ve'tzara, ve'hu nisi umanos li, menat posi be'yom ekra, be'yado afkid ruchi, be'tishan ve'ayira, ve'im ruchi geviati, Adonai li ve'lo ira.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.